Hey guys, welcome to the channel and welcome to another 40k podcast. Like I told you before, we are switching towards doing pre-recorded podcasts without fancy camera switching just because it's easier for me. And the last one went down really well. The one we did with Warsmith Chris not too long ago, we talked about the state of 40k currently and how basically kind of how it is right now in terms of like books and rules and stuff, and how there's a bit of bloat there. And I think to some people we came across mildly negative, but a lot of people actually supported what we said. So I wanted to kind of flip it on its head tonight, basically, or today. We've had Andy Byrne in the studio today, filming for DeploymentZone.tv. If you don't know what DeploymentZone.tv is, it's a website. Go check it out. It is literally www.deploymentzone.tv. It's a website owned by myself and Winters from Winters SEO, that YouTube channel that everyone knows about. If you check it out, we put a battle report online every single Tuesday without fail. We've got a number of campaigns already live on the website. We're about to launch some more. One involving you, actually,
and it's awesome. If I don't say so myself.
Yeah, of course. Brilliant. But yeah, so we've got the Champion of Chaos campaign, for example. There's a Death of Hope. You're about to launch 27 minutes. There's lots of narrative campaigns on there. So in the last video, Chris and I kind of slagged off 40k and Games Workshop a little bit, I think. I know. But what I wanted to do in this particular episode is make people realise that doesn't mean we hate the game. It doesn't mean we hate 40k. It doesn't mean we hate Games Workshop. It just means that the current state of leading edge 40k and competitive stuff at the moment we think is quite bad. So what I thought I'd pull you in to talk about, because you're kind of renowned for it, is we're going to talk about narrative play a little bit. And basically the overriding question, the title for the podcast is going to be, what is narrative play? Because I think a lot of people out there would think that narrative play basically means following the narrative missions in the rulebook, and that's it. And I don't think it is that.
No, it's far more than that. I mean, I guess it's just as simple as telling a story with the game that you're playing. It can be a story you've invented. It can be a story a friend's invented. It can be a story from one of the books, one of the Black Library books. It doesn't even have to be accurate to those books. It doesn't have to follow it word for word. It just has to be fun and tell a story. That's narrative play.
Yeah. So we've just done
that's
this,
it. That's
right?
done.
Yeah.
Right, yeah.
Shortest podcast ever. 3 minutes done. See you later. Thank you
Nailed
very much. We've kind of just done this. I'm going to move your microphone a bit closer to you.
No, cheers,
we've kind of I want to make sure everyone hears your.
You want to hide my face, don't you?
So you'll see that I move mine with me because I need to look at it. Otherwise, what Chris does, which is really interesting, is he talks like this, and then you'll hear on the podcast he goes really quiet. Then he comes back to being loud again. And I'm like, Jesus, working with amateurs. Anyway. But you're right with what you were saying. So some people have this sort of misconception, I think, that to play narratively as well, you have to be sort of like absolutely 100% true to the lore as it currently exists.
Yeah.
And I don't think that's the case.
Not in the slightest. I mean, it's the game is fun. It's a game, right?
Yeah.
So it's just another style of playing that enables you to have fun, and it's primarily through telling a story. Like I said, doesn't matter what that story is. To me, anyway. To some people, it really matters.
As well, mate, that story that exists currently, the current 40k universe, is made up by authors and writers.
Yeah.
Okay, so a writer, maybe an Aaron Dembski-Bowden or a Dan Abnett or someone, gets hold of a piece of the universal piece of the lore, and they will then write their story, and they will take it. So why can't people do the same thing?
Absolutely no reason. I mean, obviously, this is going to try and big myself up here now.
Oh, go on then.
But I've just not long ago finished up Weekend of Bernie's 2. The story that I wrote to set the scene, it's never going to get published. It's not going to win any awards. All it was meant to do is set a scene and make the games that people came and played over that weekend immersive, so they could buy into it. So for that reason, it wasn't kind of going to bring in accurate pieces of history from each different faction, because one, I don't know that, and two, I haven't got time to go and find out about it. So it's just about making a story people can buy enough into that they'll have a good time and they'll enjoy the games that they play, and they'll able to tell a bit more of that story.
I'll go as far as well to say that it doesn't even need to be like deep and layered. It can be a really we played today. I won't spoil the game for you, but we played today, and when you brought Deathwing and I bought a Chaos Soup type army to tell a story. Now, we are not 5 episodes into a campaign or into a narrative story. There wasn't layers and layers and layers of narrative that built up to this moment. You just went, I've got a cool idea for a mission.
Yeah.
And we went, okay, so let's put a little bit of why this is occurring and why this is happening. Something really simple. And then what happens when you play your game? What I found happens when I play my game, I was talking to you about this at the end actually, is you have a purpose. Rather than I'm scoring objective cards because that's the one I've turned over, or I'm killing units because it's Eternal War and I'm playing No Mercy. There's a purpose, and I feel like, for me specifically as well, I'm more invested when there's an actual purpose to the story that I'm playing.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
I love Maelstrom of War games. I really love
do.
the randomness and the excitement and the fact that you can have a topsy-turvy game. But the issue with them, narratively speaking, is that they can be quite random.
Yeah,
and I know they're called Maelstrom of War, and that's a thing.
Yeah.
But equally, I think if you want to tell a tale and you want to tell a story and you want to kind of say this is what happened, sometimes just stripping that out of the game is great for narrative purposes, because you can just go, right, he's going to fight him now because he wants to kill him, or he wants to capture him, or he wants to interrogate him, or whatever the narrative is that you're spinning.
Yeah, well, this is something we do on the channels. So both myself and Willis have done this for ages. Rather than playing a game and saying, I rolled a 4, or saying, the Maelstrom card tells me to do this. And this is one of the reasons why, for me, as much as I don't dislike ITC play, it falls down a little bit. When you're picking your secondaries and you're picking Butcher's Bill, it's basically, I'm picking a secondary objective based on how many points I think I can score.
Yeah.
Whereas when you're playing narratively, it's not, and again, like I said, it doesn't have to be deep rooted within your specific faction, but there's just a different reason for you choosing to do something. So there's a different reason for making that charge. It's actually, in terms of the actual specific mission, perhaps it makes more sense for me to do X, but narratively it makes more sense to do Y. And I have always found that I've had more fun when I've picked that narrative option.
Without doubt. And I think it's a really cool way of kind of being more invested in games that can become one-sided.
Yeah.
So if you know you're going to lose, or at least you're not going to score many points that turn, you can set your own narrative objective and go, you know what, we need to claim the high ground. Or we need to destroy that vehicle.
Or that character. Absolutely, yeah.
And it gives you some kind of sense of achievement or purpose in the game if you know that actually you can't get your Maelstrom cards. or you're never going to be able to secure Objective 4.
Yeah.
So it's like, right, we're going to kill him instead.
But that's a really important fact, actually, because, I mean, that's something that, to a degree, you're not even doing that pre-mission, right? You're doing that during the fight.
Yeah.
And you're going, this is going to shit, and it's not going the way I want to. So what I'm going to do instead is I'm going to set myself a different set of targets that I could achieve. Although I might lose the game as such, if I achieve my targets, perhaps I've narratively achieved my mission. And there's stuff like that. I mean, we're lucky, right? So we play a few times, and with the team we have on Warhammer, the guys over on DZTV as well, we're very, very lucky that we all sort of know each other and we all play in that kind of manner.
Yeah, it's a good spirit.
If you guys can find a group of people that play like that, and you're that kind of player, and you may be a bit disillusioned with 40k at the moment, I kind of urge you to go and find that group, because the amount of fun that I have with people like yourself, Chewy, Steve Not Rob, etc., just because we're not playing I'm kicking the snot out of you because that's the mission, or I'm going to go over there and claim that objective just because the cards tell me to. It's a story.
Yeah.
And that's one of the things. Winters and I played the Champion of Chaos campaign on DZTV. Now this is a campaign, but it was really easy to make. So we didn't. This I think proves the point as well, that you don't need layers and layers and layers of narrative.
No.
So I took a Chaos Warband from the Eternal Slaughter. Winters took one from the End of All Things, the Death Guard. There was minimal narrative apart from each of the Chaos Lords we had wanted to become the Champion of Chaos. I mean, that was the narrative, like a sentence.
Deep and meaningful. Complex.
And what we did actually in that campaign was we used the rulebook Eternal War missions from the original set of missions from the rulebook. So we didn't even make custom scenarios. A lot of people, I think, are concerned that you have to be some custom scenario genius.
No. It doesn't matter at all, that kind of stuff. You don't have to design bespoke rules and bespoke objectives. That's the job of a rules maker.
Yeah.
That's not the job of someone who wants to play narratively.
Not necessarily.
If you want to play narratively, you just kind of spin the story. You kind of strip away all the complexity, and the kind of rules take a back seat.
I bet, absolutely. I think that's true as well, though. And I mean, 40k's governed by rules. Like, we play a game that uses a rule book. It is a rule book. I mean, don't get me wrong, 8th edition is amazing because to use the core rules is like, 8 pages or something like that. It's not very many. But often when trying to, I guess, kind of coach people to play narratively, what I try and say to them is, it's more guidelines.
Yeah, it's definitely.
Do you know what I mean? Rather than rules.
Yeah.
So if you think actually it makes more sense to do this, we've played missions before, There was a doubles game actually I played on DZTV with the Claw against Say Hyper and Gambit, and we took some missions, some rules from Cities of Death, and plonked them in a normal mission. Why? Because it made narrative sense.
Yeah.
So we were putting a bit from here and a bit from there and a bit from here, and we mashed it together. Went, there you go, that's the mission, because that makes narrative sense to us.
You just cherry pick what works to tell the story. If you're in a densely packed city, grab that.
Yeah.
I mean, if something doesn't work in one of the missions from chapter approved, strip it out, change it. I mean, that's exactly what I've done for all the kind of mini campaigns, missions, the events that I've run, is just take away what doesn't work, keep it simple, tell a story.
Pretty much 100% bastardised, right?
Yeah. I mean, steal what works, leave what doesn't.
Yeah, absolutely.
The rule set is deep and complex, and that's part of the joy of 40k. Is there's lots of different stat lines and weapon options, and narrative reasons for taking one thing or the other. You don't have to use all that to have a great time. You can strip out what is giving you a headache. I mean, we had a great game today. First time for over a year that I've used one book.
I knew you were going to bring that up. Yeah, we were talking about this in the last podcast, right? So one of the issues I had was that Imperial Fists actually now at the stage of this filming, with another FAQ that's just come out, Imperial Fists are on 12 books, and actually with the points that are changing very soon in chapter approved. We've got the book. By the time this comes out, it won't be available for pre-order just yet, I'm hoping, because I'm hoping to put this up tomorrow.
No worries.
By the time that comes up, I think you're looking at even more books just to run Imperial Fists if you wanted access to all the toys. That was a whinge and annoyance of mine. I mean, to some extent, if you want to play pick-up games and stuff like that at local stores, you kind of need to be on top of what's going on, because people are going to want to use all their toys. And I get that, right? People spend money and time on books and models and painting, etc. And I wouldn't ever want to stop someone from using all their toys.
No, we are into enabling in a big way.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Absolutely. So I'm lucky. If someone comes here to play tomorrow, for example, in the studio, and they bought Imperial Fist and they bought 12 books, I'd be okay to keep up with what's going on. But that's because of, I run the channel and I kind of have to be up to speed with it. But of course, for new players, that can be a bit daunting. Now, as I've mentioned, you did it with your, you've already mentioned it, right? You did it with, today with the Dark Angels book. You've just used a Dark Angels book.
Yeah,
right?
That was it.
When we ran the Champion of Chaos, I'm going to go back to the Champion of Chaos, because it is the simplest narrative thing I think I've ever done, Champion of Chaos. I used the Chaos Space Marines book only. I didn't use Vigilus Ablaze. I didn't use any of that extra stuff. Perhaps now, had I have had the option to, I might have used Faith and Fury, which gave me some extra World Eater stuff, because it kind of only really puts me on the same level as the Death Guard. Winters only used a Death Guard book. So at the stage that we filmed it and we played it, we had one book each, and then we used the main rulebook missions. So we had 3 books. A rulebook and 2 codexes, and that's all we used. So that's all we did to play the Champion of Chaos. And like I said, one sentence of narrative. Which Chaos Lord will become the champion?
Nice and easy and effective. Can I flip it again?
Of course you can.
In the 27 minutes campaign, not all the way through, and I'm not going to give any spoilers, but I did run a quite heavy soup list for one of the missions, and I had to use 5 books. Loved it. It was great, and it was so narrative, and it was a really fun game.
I've had this discussion so many times in the past as well. So I'm in a group with a load of the SM boys who go to like No Retreat and stuff, a WhatsApp group. And over the course of 8th edition from start to finish, there's been a lot of I hate using the word complaining, because it makes them sound like they're all moaners and they're all amazing people. But there's been a lot of complaining about soup, and that GW need to address soup and fix soup in competitive play. And I think for competitive, perhaps, yes, they do. Narratively, there is a place for soup, 100%.
Yeah, with that, yeah. I mean, when you're kind of, the old Smash Captains and Knights and Loyal 32 or whatever it is, I mean, I don't even know the terminology. That's how distant it is from my game. But
are you a narrative player if you're running 3 Smash Captains, like I said, a Knight, and then a loyal Guard 32?
Nah.
You're not. I'm not saying you're a bad person. Like, I want to get that out there.
You're a bad person.
I'm not saying you're a bad person. Anybody out there should play the 40k that they want to play and make it their own. But I would argue at that stage, when you're running that list, you're not running it for narrative reasons.
No. I mean, what's fun for people, as long as it's fun for both players, that's cool. But
that's a big part as well, though.
Yeah,
right? Yeah. That's a big part.
The social contract. That's a whole other podcast.
Oh, that is a whole other podcast. I don't think we've got time for that. I don't think we've got enough space on the memory card. you are right. That is a whole other type of 40k. But I think it does have to be fun for both people.
Yeah, definitely. And I think that this is one of the fundamental things I found with playing narrative games is agreeing what the narrative, even in a very loose way, is going to be before you start, before you get together, putting the armies down. This is, that's too late. Even if it's a text message before saying, this is what I want to do, I think it'll be cool. And everyone gets involved. Everyone goes, oh, that means I can bring this, and I can bring this character.
Mm-hmm.
And that makes it fun for both people.
I'm
saying it's a narrative game and then bringing something really killy because you want a certain thing to happen.
I'm going to go bold as well, actually. I think you can use narrative reasons that you come up with between you two as kind of a social contract, I guess, to balance modern day 40k.
Yeah, definitely.
You know what I mean?
I know. I think I was trying to think of a way of putting it across without spoiling that game, because we kind of just did it.
We did. That's kind of why that came into my mind, because we kind of just did. We did just do it. But
yeah.
let's take something different, right? Let's take something different to what we've just done. So Grey Knights fighting an opponent of some sort. I don't know who. And there is a specific mission for the Grey Knights. They deep strike in. They have to achieve one thing. Are Grey Knights going to be able to deep strike in against a demon horde list, for example, and win at No Mercy? Probably not. Could they deep strike in to assassinate or lift a specific character out of that? Probably they could.
Yeah, there's a chance there if the player's clever about it and has an idea and a plan and executes it. But that's why you play that kind of mission.
Yeah,
you can get very tactical, because I think there's an assumption that a narrative game is just simple because you're stripping away some of the complexity. That's true to an extent. But I think it can be really complex in setting your own objectives that fit the story you're trying to tell, that actually make you think, oh, how am I going to use my resources? How am I going to use my army?
I mean, I do agree with what you were saying as well about how I think like a text or a phone call, whatever meetup is key to sort of set up the kind of the feel for it and say, actually, this is going to be a narrative scenario. And this is even if it is, this is the very rough idea I've got for the story, and that is that this army is here because of X, this army is coming here because of Y, and this is what's going to be their mission. All right, so it's really loose, really loose. Okay, what I also think you can do with narrative, if the pair of you are I don't even think 100% you need to be like mates and friends or regular players or whatever. But one thing you can do, which is quite interesting, you can adapt and change during the game.
Definitely. Yeah.
So if you realise with narrative, I think, and we've done this. This is off-camera stuff I've done in the past. You get halfway through the game and you realise this is swinging hugely one way, and it's looking like it's almost impossible for the other player to bring it back the other way. So what I'm going to do at that point is I'm going to go, here's a challenge for you and your army that you can't physically win the mission that we've set perhaps, but you can achieve that challenge. It gives you a reason to fight on.
It's a buy-in to the game, keeps it interesting, keeps it enjoyable for both players, and it's just evolving the story.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that you've got to kind of be flexible. No one's there to kind of curb stomp someone else in a narrative game. Well, some people might be, but they're probably not narrative players.
I think we've seen it before, but yeah, some people might be.
No comment. But yeah, I think essentially it's about having that conversation going, this could be really cool, let's do this. Maybe he gets turned into a spawn. Maybe that's your objective for the second half of this battle. So that kind of thing. You
also I'm not trying to kiss your backside, but you kind of did this at Weekend at Bernie's too as well, right? You had, I know you said some of it didn't work as well as others, but that was a trial and error thing anyway. But you had things that you could look at a battle and go, this is swinging massively one way, so I'm going to do something like I'm going to drop a great unclean one on your battle grid.
Yeah, but that was more just to bully Matt.
Yeah, he
was winning, so I gave him 4 greater demons and a knight.
Yeah, to deal with.
Which made him think. But that's just more bullying someone.
But I mean, that's an extreme case. What I'm saying is, we've got shelves around us at the moment with models and stuff on. What I'm saying is, if it's swinging one way and you're going, this is actually really one-sided, I'm kicking his ass a bit, or vice versa, I'm getting my ass kicked. Why couldn't a Baneblade roll on? Why couldn't a Bloodthirster appear? There's always reasons for that sort of stuff to happen as well.
Yeah, and I also think as well that kind of thing can be decided by the dice. It's a dice game, so it's not like, oh, you're losing really badly, here's a new toy to play with. It's kind of on a 5-up, you get some reinforcements. It's a mechanic in the game already, build it in, or at the end of each movement phase, you roll a whatever, and something rumbles onto the battlefield. I mean, it makes it fluid, makes it exciting. Why not?
The other massive bonus for you guys, if you do want to give this narrative play a go, and I definitely encourage you to, if you've got the right people around you to do that, I definitely encourage you to give it a go. But the other bonus is, as we have discovered today, in fact, you can rekindle a love for what could be potentially a dead faction. So with 40k at the moment, I would suggest, in my personal opinion, maybe Andy disagrees, that balance across factions is terrible. Some are exceptionally powerful, some are really, really poor. You look at Grey Knights, and actually, let's take the faction you use today. Dark Angels are an Adeptus Astartes faction. When you compare Dark Angels to the standard Space Marine Codex and supplements that exist for the 6 sub-chapters that are now out, they are in a really bad place compared.
Yeah.
Okay. And you look at things like a chapter trait that for Deathwing and Ravenwing, 2/3 of your army, isn't applicable because you don't want to be staying still. It's not a very well put together book. It's not very narratively balanced, and it doesn't have very strong rules, as opposed to Astartes, who are insanely powerful. Grey Knights are in a terrible place, and there's a story. You can do this across lots of different factions. So Necrons are arguably suffering. They're finding a bit of a resurgence with Marines being everywhere because of how much AP-3 weaponry they can kick out. But still, when you compare them to some of the other factions, like Drakari, for example, Necrons will likely lose all the time. Okay, so there is a definite unbalance between codexes, and if you are a player who loves Dark Angels or loves Grey Knights or loves Necrons, and you go to events and tournaments and you play normal missions from chapter approved and rule books against pretty strong lists, you probably could lose the love.
Yeah, I think for me with the Dark Angels, I was really struggling to make a list that was fun to play, and it wasn't necessarily win games, but compete in a game that meant it went to turn 5, and it was close, and it was exciting, it was interesting. The main reason for that is I don't run any Primaris unit to my Dark Angels, just because it doesn't feel right to me. I mean, I'm not saying that's right, I'm not saying it's wrong.
But that's your narrative.
My narrative was old school, the original Marines, Deathwing, lots of Terminators, some Ravenwing bikes, all the units that haven't really received any love. I mean, they've got points drops and they're a little bit better here and there, but overall they're still pants if you if you run an army that's just those. So today for me was a bit about bringing a list that was just Deathwing Terminators, was purely first company doing what they do, dropping in and smashing face, and seeing if I could have a good time with them. I didn't really care about winning. It was just about, is it going to be turn 1 and I put my models away and go home? Or
Which it wasn't.
No.
Because we set up a narrative scenario.
Exactly. So I've now kind of convinced myself that there was a mechanism by which I can construct a game, agree it with an opponent, and have fun with the army that's kind of my first love in 40k.
Yeah, absolutely.
If I want to curb stomp someone and do my whole win at all costs thing and re-roll and all that, I've got other armies to do that with.
Yeah, with storm shields and storm bolters and all that kind of stuff.
Wow, can't possibly comment. To be fair, the army I ran today had storm shields and storm bolters.
But it's a truth though. It's a truth though, isn't it? That's the thing. Like one of my first loves was Zeldar, and I'm very lucky that even running a narrative Sam Hahn list, it's not. It struggles compared to some of the stronger builds out there that exist, but it's still I have an opportunity to do well. I've won as many games with my Sam Hahn Eldar, so I'm talking no battalions, I'm talking sort of basic like outriders and spearheads, as I have lost. So that's I think that's fine. If I win as much as I lose, I'm okay with that. There are armies out there, unfortunately, that I think lose a significant amount more than they win, not necessarily because of the player. Obviously, player skill has something to do with it, and there are always occasions where one player will just be better than another player, and ultimately, player skill can have a massive deciding factor on how a game turns out.
Well,
but
on that note, though, I mean, I came back to 40k 2 years ago with the Dark Angels, and I lost every single game with them. Until I played Brom.
Doesn't say
so
much, yeah.
just on the player skill note.
Massive on player skill. Everything. Player skill means everything. but you see what I'm saying. Like player skill is a thing, and it will make a difference. But sometimes, if your players, like you take two players who are exactly the same skill level, and one of them has pure Dark Angels and one of them has current Imperial Fists. I'm 90% sure I know already who's probably going to win.
Yeah.
If they're the same skill level.
There's definitely advantages and disadvantages in army builds and the codexes and the supplements and that kind of thing. But I think that comes back to the social contract. If you're going to a tournament and you want to win and you want to take top table prize, you don't take a fluffy Dark Angels list.
Yeah, absolutely.
So if you were playing that the Imperial Fist play and you were taking Dark Angels and it was the only army you had and the only army they had, spin a narrative, make it fun, talk about it beforehand, and make the lists balanced.
This is the biggest piece of naff advice I could probably give anyone on YouTube ever, because it's so obvious to say it, and actually, to be fair, before people scream at me, it can be difficult to execute depending on what's around you. Mm-hmm. But the biggest piece of advice I could give people out there is surround yourself with people or players that are basically the same as you to a degree. I don't mean play the same faction, but if you are surrounding yourself, if you're a narrative player who wants to have that fun sort of narrative type experience on the tabletop, why surround yourself with 6 people that are interested in smashing as much face as they can and end up in an arms race and sort of meta chase? And if you're a meta chaser, you're probably going to get bored smashing 6 narrative players constantly.
Well, quite. And, it's surprisingly easy to do as well. I mean, this is going to sound like me kind of plugging the Discord, but there's,
plug away. I'm very proud of it. Plug away.
There's a huge amount of narrative players in there, and I mean proper narrative players in terms of what I've just been pitching as my kind of feel to it. Plenty of people like Mordy and John and Dark Angel Chris that I play regularly or semi-regularly. And then there's other people who are more invested in the lore and that kind of narrative play and following it to the books and recreating things. I mean, I think there was a group of them that just recreated one of the narrative battles from 40k lore with orcs and Imperial Guard and all that kind of stuff. And so there's all those different layers. So there are communities out there where you can go and find like-minded people. I mean, I attended a club, I won't name it, for a short while that had quite a few win at all cosplayers, and it kind of did disenfranchise me a little bit. But then finding that there's more to it, there's more communities out there, and there's more opportunities to play that kind of game.
I find it really hard because I don't want to badmouth win at all cost players. It depends on what level of win at all cost they are. Actually, we did a podcast a while ago about what makes a win at all cost player, and there are win at all cost players who will quite literally cheat to win. I've got no time for them in any form of 40k. But there's also win at all cost players who will synergize and list build and theorize until they get to something that's so optimized that they will steamroller most of who they play who aren't also hardcore competitive players. Now, they're still kind of a win at all cost type. I don't have a problem with you people. I think you people can happily exist with each other over in the corner. But what I'm saying is that they're not the people that, if you're an active player, you should be going and finding to sit and throw dice with.
No. And I think that's my point, really, is that I didn't have a unpleasant game or a bad experience. They were really cool opponents and it was fun.
Yeah.
It just wasn't what I was looking for in terms of playing the game.
Yeah, absolutely.
And because it was a random opponent or it was someone who I'd never met before, it was slightly harder to get that social contract. And I was a returning player, so I didn't know what exact opportunities there were to play narratively. So it does take a little bit of time to find out where your space is in the community and who your best opponents are.
Yeah, absolutely.
But go out and ask. There's loads of opportunities to have these conversations.
We've said this before, right? So we have a deploymentzone.tv Discord that is a paid-for Discord that access gained via Patreon, and there is many, many people in there that you can find on the map that we have, or just to organise games in meetups and stuff. But what I've said to people before, and I maintain this, that's not the only community out there in existence where you can do that. There's Facebook groups, there's gaming clubs, there's all sorts. And if you find that club, I mean, the first thing I would honestly advise someone to do is go down to that club the first night, or maybe 2 nights, and with expecting not to play.
Yeah.
And you could have a wander around and you could probably get a feel for, 1, the sort of general atmosphere at that place and how people are playing, or 2, you can go over there, that seems to be a competitive corner. So those people are people that I'm going to try and avoid. And then, actually, these guys are playing the exact kind of 40k that I like, and I'm going to say to one of them, hey mate, next week, do you fancy a game?
Yeah, I mean, I've done that. The club that I've regularly attended in Swindon for the past couple of years, it's nothing against those people, it's just I know who I have more fun with. And it's not to mean that I don't have fun or those people are playing in the wrong way. They're having fun.
Yeah.
So that's cool.
Absolutely. This is the thing, right? So, like I said to you guys at the start, Chris and I had a bit of a moan last time. I'm not hating on 40k. I love the hobby. I wouldn't have a channel around 40k, but it's just that's not my type of 40k, that hardcore stuff. And I think that there is a risk with all these books and stuff that it's getting a touch bloated. But what I'm saying is there is the opportunity there, should you wish to, and you find the right people, to strip it back, go back to sort of basics, and play what you want to play.
Yeah. There's no, there's lots and lots of rules in 40k, hundreds, thousands even, but there's no rule that says you have to use them all.
Exactly. They're guidelines. That's the thing. They're guidelines.
Pick and choose what works. So, construct a fun game for yourself.
I urge people, if you're falling out of love with it, like some of us have done with some of the rules that have been released recently and some of the updates that they're doing, if you feel like you're falling out of love with it, if you feel like you're falling out of love of a specific faction that you've had for years and suddenly it's not doing quite what you hoped it would do because the rules don't quite work for you, I challenge you to try playing a couple of narrative games with people that you know will be kind of on the same wavelength as you. And the first thing to do, like Andy quite rightly said, chat to them beforehand. Yeah. Get a hold of them by a text, a phone call, Facebook, whatever it might be. Chat to them and say, look, I want to have a go at doing this, and this is an idea for a mission that I want to run, and I want my character to achieve this, or my army to do that, or whatever. And if you can set that narrative scenario up, and it, like I said, it doesn't have to be in depth. It can be. We know people in our own Discord that are they're so into the lore that they could give you history on specific chapters and factions and craft worlds and all kinds of stuff.
And that's cool.
It's amazing, but you don't have to have that to play narratively. You don't have to use the narrative rulebook missions. You can still. So one of the things I find that's quite useful, we played a narrative game today. We still basically used a rulebook mission from Vigilus-ish. We still use points to keep it relatively balanced. So we still use a lot of the balancing factors that currently exist in 8th edition, but we still spun a narrative game. There's no pressure to do it a certain way, and it was amazing amounts of fun.
Yeah, definitely. I think it's just about finding that and the fact that it will work for both of you, and no one person walks away going, I didn't really want to do that. Well, that wasn't that wasn't that much fun. So it's like anything. You balance a matched play game with points, balance a narrative game with what you both find fun. That's it. I am astoundingly ignorant about 40k lore. I know the basics for the armies I collect and the armies I play, and I know enough from the Black Library books I've read and the codexes, but I don't know deep amounts of history.
I'm going to suggest that possibly puts you in a slightly better position in terms of narrative gameplay.
Just give me a bit of freedom.
Exactly that, right? So, for those of you who don't know, Deployment Zone is running its first ever narrative event next year. We're not going to give away loads of details now, but Andy's the man that's running it for us. After running Weekend at Bernie's 1 and 2 for the Warhammer team, you did an amazing job, and everyone's loved it. So we're going to apply a lot of those principles to the Deployment Zone narrative campaign that's going to come next year. Details will be up on DZTV soon-ish. And because you're not completely sort of stringently attached to that lore, you don't have to follow the narrative specifically for that particular faction. It's made your life very easy in terms of running these. I say easy. I'm not saying running weekends, but you see what I mean.
Interesting choice of words.
Structuring that narrative has been a little bit less restrictive because you've been a little bit more free with how it works.
I only had one nervous breakdown as opposed to 3 or 4.
Yeah, but that's what I'm saying. Like, just because you and your friend might have Blood Angels, and so one of the first games we played on DZ, I think it was, I played Blood Angels against Brom's Ultramarines. Narrative car crash. Astartes versus Astartes. And we spun it in such a way that people I actually had messages saying, wow, actually that worked.
Anything can work. I mean, it's a blue on blue engagement. I played against Raven Guard with my Death Watch, and it felt counterintuitive. I was just like, we need a narrative to explain this. Yeah. And we just came up with very simple that the Raven Guard had captured some Farseer, Eldar Farseer, and we wanted him because we're the Ordo Xenos. Yeah. Job done. It was simple as that.
When we ran Blood Angels vs Ultramarines, Brom was like quite Primaris heavy, and at the time I was borrowing Martin Waller's Blood Angels, and he didn't have a single Primaris unit because he built and painted all those before Primaris came out. We suggested basically that Gulliman had said the Blood Angels were taking Primaris, and this particular sort of group of Blood Angels were going, nope, don't want them. Don't want them at all because we've got a flaw or we don't,
Yeah.
So, and we span that narrative to it. That's the very, very loose. But it doesn't need to be in-depth and intricate and intrinsic. It can be loose. It can be sort of like floaty and you can make up anything you want.
Yeah, and I think, obviously there's certain constraints if you're filming a narrative campaign or a battle report for YouTube or DZ, in that you want people to be able to buy into it. But if you're doing it in your living room or your garage or whatever, who cares? If you're having fun, you're having fun.
Absolutely. And the other thing, which you've kind of alluded to already as well, is let the dice tell the story. Now,
I've got that tattooed. Do you want to see?
I'm not going to go as far as to do what you do and say don't use command rerolls, but let the dice tell the story. So if you roll 5 1s, rather than being absolutely devastated that you've just rolled 5 1s, think of what's just happened. Think of what that symbolises on the battle grids,
Yeah.
And the
shots fly wide.
There could be reasons for it, absolutely. There can be reasons for it. It could be that you're against Nurgle and all the weapons have just seized because of this instant rot and rust. It could be that they're wildly off target because what they're shooting at is so far. There's always a way you can spin it, I think.
Yeah, definitely. And just to clarify, I don't say don't use command point rerolls. I say I don't use command point rerolls because I don't find it fun. Insert comments below.
Yeah, don't, please. I mind it's engagement, I suppose it is engagement, yeah. Andy says that no one ever should ever use command point rerolls. And if
That's
you do,
tattooed somewhere else.
If you do use command point rerolls, Santa will not visit your house.
You'll get a lump of coal from me through your window.
Yeah, and he's engraved on it, do not use command point rerolls. Anyway, this was going to be a short podcast because we didn't have a lot of time, but I wanted to do something and put it up on the channel because Andy's always fun to talk to and we've just had such a great game.
Thanks.
And we were like, you know what, maybe let's talk about this because one, I was a bit concerned that the last one was a little bit negative in terms of we hate Games Workshop, and that's not the case.
And I'm relentlessly positive.
Yeah, one of the happiest men I know.
I'm not like a miserable git like Chris.
Yeah, there was a couple of comments about how it's whingy old Chaos players back on, which it kind of was. So what I want to reiterate is throughout this whole process of me complaining about these books releases and stuff that's been going on, I've continued playing 40k and filming and enjoying myself. And I've played Andy and I played Warsmith Chris and I played Chewy and I played Rev Ryu from Discord, Ryan, which that game went up actually the day we filmed this. That game went up today, and I've had so much fun playing all those people. And it's because we have that same sort of narrative outlook. So please, everyone, find a narrative player, play with them, and you'll enjoy yourselves. That's about that. So short and sweet. Thank you so much for joining us.
Always a pleasure.
It's always a pleasure talking to you. Now you get to drive all the way home.
Oh, I thought I was staying here.
No. I know she said you could stay for a week. No. I hope you guys have enjoyed it. If you have, check out all the other podcasts that are on the channel. Don't forget to check out deploymentzone.tv for all of our battle reports. We also put battle reports on Warhammer. There's one coming soon against Chewy, which will be good fun. I think he brings his Blood Angels, if I remember rightly. So check those out. I will start putting these back up on Podbean too, so they'll be live on iTunes and Spotify, etc. I just need to get around to it. And that's about that. If you want to support us, you can subscribe at deploymentzone.tv. You can also subscribe on Patreon to get access to Discord. They are two separate things. One gets you access to videos, one gets you access to our community. A big shout out to all of our channel patrons, whether you're a normal DZ customer or a patron of Discord, of Patreon. In fact, you guys are all legend. Thank you very much. A huge shout out goes to our sponsors, Element Games. You guys are amazing. There's an affiliate link in the video description below. If you click that link and shop on Element via that link, they know you came from us, and we get loads of money for it. Awesome. Not really, but they do know you came from us, and then they like to look after us more because we're looking after them and you're looking after us.
And Element Matt does all right.
Element Matt's a legend. Anyway, thank you very much for watching. We'll see you in the next one.
Bye.